For the last few weeks, I've been blogging on taking charge of your life because I continue to believe that it's very important for our world's future. As most of us, I also drifted quite a lot in my life, got lost, wasted a lot of time, till I met a very interesting person on a train ride from Jamshedpur to Delhi. It was a very long 42-hour ride, and this person was sitting next to me. And I was drifting in and out of conversations and having all kinds of irrelevant points of view on all kinds of irrelevant issues. And he said something to me about taking charge of your time as an example of taking charge of your life. And I see a lot of young children today, young managers today, even experienced managers drifting in their thinking process today. And I was wondering if what that gentleman told me on taking charge of your time would be relevant for you to think about, is that way of taking charge of your life. And what he said was that actually when we were born, the only real currency we were born with was time. And if you consider that there is a limited amount of that currency which God gave us when we were born, because there has to be a time where we'll celebrate our last birthday and go away, and treat that currency as what you're spending every second, every minute. And if that is the only real currency you came up with, other than your body, which will anyway outlast you, you have to think about that who decides to spend that currency. Is that you who's spending that time, or is that somebody else who's spending the time? And my belief is what that thought brought in my mind is that, am I taking a conscious decision every time I spend the second? Who do I spend with? What do I spend it doing? And what do I want out of the second which I've spent? And many people I have related the story to have come back and told me that it really helps the moment you start thinking about your time as your time and as your conscious choice of spending that time. A couple of things happen. The first, as in my case also, the first, you start taking responsibility for outputs rather than just inputs, because it's your conscious decision of spending time doing one thing and not the other thing. Number two, you start enjoying it more because it's your conscious decision, and you walk away from situations where you think it's a waste of time because you have consciously, rightly or wrongly, made that decision. And I think the third most important thing is you get really serious about what you enjoy doing, because there is no point of spending time on things which you don't enjoy learning about, thinking about, talking about, listening about, and doing. What's the point of doing those things which you really don't enjoy? And my belief is that if you find that zone of confidence and the zone of enjoyment, you will find a huge amount of success. A question which has been asked multiple times to me is that people who take conscious decision of spending their time, are they selfish? And my belief is that while God gave us currency as time, He also built a heart around us which feels extremely good in giving. And therefore, if you imagine your life being spent in 10% of the time which you control, 80% of the time where you drift, and maybe 20% or 10% of the time which somebody else's control, you would understand that the biggest wastage of time is not what somebody else's control, but the time of drift. And if you feel good about giving, I have seen wherever people start taking conscious choices of spending time and they feel good about giving, they start spending time in areas where they can share, they can give, they can participate, they can contribute, because that makes them feel good. So taking charge of your time does not mean that you become introspecting, you become selfish, you lock yourself in the room. Actually, it means that you take charge of your time and spend it in giving, because that's what makes you feel good, or learning because that's what motivates you, and doing because that's the zone of huge amount of comfort for you. So think about it. If any of you had an experience that by controlling your time and taking those conscious decisions, you were able to take charge of your life. I would be very interested, we all will be very interested to hear your stories and think about it collectively.